Baby feeding mistakes are all too common amongst first-time parents, and today I'm going to teach you about the 5 most common baby feeding mistakes so you don't have to make them. Hey everyone, I'm Jill Castle. I am the host of this channel and welcome. If this is your first time, make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss a video. I pop out about 1 a week and I talk about all kinds of nutrition for infants, toddlers, children, and teens. And I talk about it so you can be better at feeding and nourishing your own children. Today, we are talking about some of the most common baby feeding mistakes that parents make today. And I want to talk about this because I think it's super important for you to understand, as probably a first-time parent or knowing somebody who's a first-time parent, about all the things that can trip you up along the way. The first point I want to talk about is the fact that all those transitions in the first year of life are super fast. Okay, so think about your baby when it's brand new. You are either breastfeeding that baby or you're feeding infant formula. And you're doing that for about the first 6 months. But by the time you hit 6 months of age, you are then entering into the solid food introduction phase, and things happen at a clip. They happen fast because by a year of age, your baby should be eating the foods you're eating. Your baby should be at the table with you, not off in a corner in a high chair. So if you think about that second 6 months, 6 to 12 months, we are moving fast and it is lickety split. And you need to know what to expect and be well versed in what the milestones are and those baby feeding transitions are. When you are not prepped for that information, you will feel stressed, you will feel frustrated, you will feel behind the 8 ball. And I don't want you to feel that way. You don't need to feel that way. The second point I want to make is that the whole goal of this first year of feeding, this whole nutrition goal for your baby, is to develop self-feeding skills. So that means your baby is learning how to pick up food and put it in his mouth. Your baby is learning how to eventually use a spoon and scoop food and put it in his mouth. So we want babies to feed themselves. Now, obviously, when they're really young, they need our help. But if you keep the goal of self-feeding in mind, you will be more inclined to give your child opportunities to explore food and to get messy and to eventually learn how to eat food. Now, let's talk about those 5 big mistakes. I think the first mistake is just not being educated. And I have to say, I have a heart for new parents because I was a new parent, and even though I was a pediatric dietitian, I made my own mistakes with my own first child. I kind of rested on my laurels and thought, I'm a trained dietitian, I know what to do. And the truth of the matter was, the reality when you have your own little baby and you want to do everything right and you don't want to misstep, sometimes you do. And so I had my own reality check, and I don't want you to have that same experience. So don't go into this without knowledge. I actually have a book that I wrote called The Smart Mom's Guide to Starting Solids. It gives you everything you need to know about transitions in the first year, textures to start with, how to let your baby either spoon feed or do baby-led weaning. I talk about all the nutrient requirements and the recommendations for things like vitamin D and iron. So get educated. That's my very first point. And when parents don't get educated, that's when all the mistakes start to happen. Number 2, keeping your baby clean while he's eating. This is a big mistake because food all over the face and all over the body, while it is messy, it's also a sensory experience for your child. And your child needs to have all of these sensory experiences so he can learn about food, learn about flavor, learn about smell, learn about the touch and the feel of food. These are important things for your child to learn because it helps enhance their liking of food, and their autonomy with eating. A third mistake I see parents make is spoon feeding their baby for way too long. So we start feeding our babies solid foods at around 6 months, and you can either spoon feed or you can use a baby-led weaning method where baby is feeding himself solid foods. Many parents start with spoon feeding, which is A-okay. But what can happen is 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, 11 months, and we're still spoon feeding our baby. The spoon feeding phase is short-lived. So between 6 and 8 months of age, yes, you're spoon feeding. But by 8 months of age, most babies are able to start picking up small pieces of food and putting them in their mouth. And that is a sign that you're going to upgrade the texture. You're going to make things chunkier. You're going to start to give little pieces of food that your baby can use his pincer grasp to pick up and feed himself. When we keep our babies on spoons or spoon feeding them for a prolonged period of time, and I'm saying beyond 9 months is probably too long. Now you can do a little bit of spoon feeding with a lot of self-feeding solid foods, but if you're only spoon feeding and you're getting up to 9 and 10 months of age, the research tells us that your baby can be delayed in his speech and language development and in his fine motor development. So we don't want to do that. We want to stay on course with making sure we are upping the texture and challenging our babies to move forward with food. So right around 9 and 10 months, your baby really should be having lots of small chopped foods and meltable foods that your baby can self-feed. Number 4, the fourth mistake I see happening is that parents get really caught up in offering their babies only healthy food. So they gravitate towards lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, lots of whole grains, lots of lean protein, and they forget about fat. So why is that a problem? Well, babies need more fat than you and I do. Babies need about half of their calories, up to about 40% of their calories by the time they're a year of age, from fat. Why is that? Because they're growing very rapidly and they need that dense caloric contribution in their diet. Secondly, their tummies are really small, and so they can't hold a lot of food at one point. So the food that they do eat needs to be nutrient rich and calorie dense. And number 3, those little noggins, their brains, are developing really quickly, and that process is dependent on rich sources of fat in the diet. Now, the good news is that if you're nursing with breast milk or if you're using infant formula, those are already packed up with a lot of fat. So that's going to cover your baby's needs. But when you start to get into the upper months of that first year, you don't want to go too healthy. It is fine for you to add some olive oil to the vegetables that you're sauteing. It's fine for you to use whole milk products, and you should be using whole fat products for your baby. All of this is to ensure that your baby is getting a concentrated source of calories that's going to feed and nurture the development of their brain and their body. The fifth mistake that I see happening is that adults are giving their babies and young toddlers adult foods. So sip of that latte that you are drinking, iced tea, coffee, desserts, all of these things are not packed with the types of nutrients that your baby needs to grow and develop well. In fact, a lot of these foods are packed with caffeine and sugar, both of which are no-nos for children under the age of 2. So skip the adult foods until your child gets a little bit older. Now, if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so much information, I'm not sure I'm on the right track, head over to anywhere where you can purchase books and get a copy of my book, The Smart Mom's Guide to Starting Solids. It will steer you on the right path. You can also ask your questions in the comment section below, and while you're there, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I'd love to have you come back, and I'd love to know what you want to hear about because I'd love to teach you more. Again, thanks for being here today. I'll see you next time. Have fun feeding that little one of yours.